Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here. We will get started in about 7 minutes or so. We just wanted to make sure all our technical issues are there. For those of you watching at home on Facebook, we'll do our best to make sure that we can get the information to you. We do have a small presentation that we're going to do in council chambers, but for those of you watching on Facebook, you get to look at the 2 different versions of the potential roundabouts. But we'll get started in about 7 minutes. Norm, Sue, I think we're going to get you your own parking spots here at some point. We'll have to get you your own parking spots here. You're off here as often as you are.
Right now it's got a handicap thing on it. Huh? How confusing it is now. So, you know. I'm not safe. Well, just
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and get started here. I just want to kind of go over a couple of things. My name is Joe Begany. I'm the mayor of Reynoldsburg. Have a few other people in the audience this evening, Councilman Lou Salvati, as well as our service director, William Dorman, who's been here, who's going to join us for a brief time tonight. But I want to kind of give a little bit of history of how all of this started. As you can see, we have, for those of you here in chambers, you can see we have a presentation on a PowerPoint. For those of you watching at home, you just have a picture of one of the proposals. This was begun, process that was begun under the previous administration and the service director, that they did a number of different possible scenarios about where a roundabout would be. Ultimately, it went nowhere. And then about 12, 13 months ago, we created a number of commissions here in Reynoldsburg, if you were not aware. One of them is called the Traffic and Transportation Commission. And the chair of that commission, Brett Luzader, is a big proponent of the roundabout, specifically at this particular location. And he brought it from the commission. We met with our city engineer and talked about some of the potentials for roundabouts throughout Reynoldsburg, but most of them were located specifically in this area on the 5-way. So we're going to go ahead and go through that. He wanted to make sure that, that before anything is decided one way or another, that the community was as involved as possible, as did I. So that's why we're having this. This is not going to happen anytime soon. There are no plans. There's nothing outside of what you're about to see tonight that's done. And these plans were done many years ago. We're talking 2018. So this is not anything that is imminent. The amount of funding that would be needed for this would not become available until 2025 at the absolute earliest. However, that being said, that if we want to do this, if this is what the community and council would like to do, we can also continue to move in that path at a pace so everyone is familiar with it. And before I continue, I did forget to say, Councilwoman Meredith Lawson-Rowe is here this evening as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of a brief presentation before we get to the thing that everybody wants to talk about, is the actual designs themselves. So this safety study was done by Jacobs, again, in October. It presented October of 2019. The purpose is to evaluate the existing safety conditions at the five-leg intersection of the Baltimore-Reynoldsburg Road, or the 256, includes Lancaster, East Livingston, Slate Ridge Boulevard, and beyond. We have the need as the intersection is currently congested during peak hours, with traffic expected to grow at an approximate average annual rate of 0.5% for at least the next 20 years. Ranked as one of the top 5 crash intersections within the city of Reynoldsburg on Morpsey's high crash location list by jurisdiction for cities. That, however, has since fallen. Ranked as one of the 100 top regional high crash locations within Morpsey, and it's identified for a study by ODOT's Local Safety Assistance Program, which is what most of this information is presented from. So again, those of you that are watching here at City Council, you can see on the big screen that this is an aerial shot of the five-way. For those of you watching at home, you pretty much see what the five-way looks like with the potential roundabout. So we all know what the traffic considerations are in that particular area. The crash data summary, again, dated from 2015 to 2017, which is, again, a little bit older. 98% of crashes involved 2 or more vehicles. Approximately 60% of all crashes occurred between noon and 6 p.m., which coincides with the hours of highest traffic volume. Most common crash types include rear ends, side swipes while people are passing, angle crashes, which I would assume at that point angle crash would mean something like a T-bone, as well as left turn lanes. 7 crashes involved either the driver's inability or failure to comply with the traffic signal, running a red light, or attempting to clear the intersection under a yellow light. Of 2 head-on crashes during this period, 1 resulted in the fatality and 1 was a serious injury. Only 2 crashes involved alcohol. Only 1 crash report noted a vehicle exceeding the speed limit. And that, again, was data from 2015 to 2017. If we decide to pursue this further, we would obviously have those numbers updated. Since most crashes occur during daylight on dry pavement, lighting and pavement conditions are likely minor contributors to the safety issues. Typical behavioral issues, including speeding and alcohol, are not common at this intersection, and crash patterns suggest the combination of congestion, access control, and irregular geometry of the 5-leg intersection are contributing to an increased potential for crashes. The reason why Jacobs was recommending the potential of a roundabout at this particular time is it offers the greatest reduction in crashes, projected at 38%, and greatest improvement in traffic operations, meaning reduced congestion for the 2040 design year. Could help restricted access drives, right in and right out, by providing an indirect left turn. Given current demand, the roundabout would likely be multi-lane, which is the thing that makes this trickier than most roundabouts. It may decrease rear-ended crashes, but would increase side swipes, essentially flipping the proportions of the 2 crashes. So while the crashes may not necessarily be as severe, they will probably become more frequent. The city of Reynoldsburg would need to get approval from a city council prior to pursuing a full safety study funding application for a roundabout. That is where this proposal had died in the past, and that would have to happen if this were to move forward outside of this particular meeting. So if I could have somebody come up and flip the, actually, I'll just go this. So here's what everybody is seeing at home. Oh. I think we've lost, did we lose our internet connection, or are we still good? Okay. So for those of you that are looking at home, now we're talking about the very specific roundabout. As you can see, this is a 5-way roundabout with a circular in the center. It is a very 2-lane in all the way throughout, and there are some logistical issues with this. Obviously, there's a large amount of land that would actually need to be taken or purchased in right-of-way to allow for this particular proposal to come forward. But this is one of the options. It's the most traditional of the roundabout options that are out there. Are we still? Okay. So that is one of them. And the one that is the more unique one is the peanut-shaped one, or figure 8, or dog bone, or whatever anybody would like to call. This one would be a little bit different. And again, this is, we'll put the picture up here in the center in just a second so you can see it at home. Each version of the roundabout would allow for sidewalks and pathways to connect all the way throughout. So pedestrian access could improve in the general area. And again, now I think those of you watching at home should be able to see what the potential peanut would look like. All right, so those are the two issues right there. The next step is going to be continue to get community feedback, potentially presenting any information to council sometime this year. If the project is to proceed, to coordinate with our engineering firm EMH&T for design and grant timeline, which again, the earliest would be in 2025. I know that's a very brief thing, but this is more about getting community input. Obviously, social media is incredibly active, and this has been a popular topic over the last few days. So I've read pretty much every one of the comments on there. When we talked with our engineer just a few months ago, the last time that the Traffic Commission was talking about it, the big concerns that our engineer had is the increase in the amount of sideswipe accidents that would occur at this location, even though maybe the head-on collisions or rear-end collisions would decrease. Other comments have been that north and south traffic on 256 into Graham Road would probably be able to flow a little bit better, but there's concerns about what would happen on the Livingston and Slate Ridge Boulevard and Lancaster Avenues as well. So those are the concerns there. The other things is, let's be honest, I believe this would be the third or only the fourth five-spoked roundabout in the entire nation. So it would be something that is very unique. We did reach out to a town in Indiana that does have one, and they said pretty much the same thing, that what we've been hearing is that while it will decrease the severity of crashes, the increase in sideswipe accidents will be significant, especially for the first 2 to 3 years as people are getting used to this particular thing, without even talking yet about the construction phase and how long it would take on that. That being said, that gives you a general overview of what the Traffic and Transportation Committee has seen over the last year and what they are looking at. And if there's anyone that would like to speak at this time, you're more than welcome to kind of walk up to the podium and make your comments. The only thing I do ask is please be respectful. I know that here it's a little bit different, but on social media, there are a number of comments that were, let's just say, we can all be adults about this. You know, not everybody's going to be a fan of roundabouts, and then there's going to be people that are incredibly enthusiastic about roundabouts. Let's just kind of keep to the very specifics of this particular thing. If there's anyone that has any questions or comments, don't everybody stand up at once. If you could just introduce so everybody can know who you're talking about.
Hi, this is Norm Brusk. I live in Slate Ridge.
If you could speak directly as close as you can into the microphone, even with your mask.
Is this a little better?
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Oh, right. My concern, or I just wondered if concern was taken about pedestrians crossing in the five-way. It looks to me like there may be a problem with that. And has that been looked at yet?
We haven't even gotten to that point. This is very preliminary, but no, I agree that we are trying to work on some improvements in pedestrian access in general into that area before the request from the Traffic and Transportation Committee requested to have this meeting.
Paul Yarger from Rose Hill Road. Heard a lot of people say concerns about the number of accidents potential on there. And I think, again, getting that information that there are a number of accidents to start out with, and that statistically, when you put these in, it does reduce those accidents. Mm-hmm. So people's mentally thinking that it's going to be hard to judge and figure out what to do, and it actually will help. One of my concerns or questions was, especially from Livingston East down 256, some of the roundabouts, not necessarily a five-way, have a dedicated right turn lane. Mm-hmm. And especially in that area, if we can get the land to be able to do that, and maybe a merge lane or whatever to have a consistent right turn lane where you don't have to go through the roundabout. Some of them have a roundabout avoidance for the main traffic flows. So maybe coming down Jackson and turning right, but especially East Livingston heading south. If there can be a dedicated lane built in on that and then merge back in, I think that's where a high volume and just consistent right turn. The other concern might be, is there an opportunity further down 256 for the people that made a mistake to do a legal U-turn to come back up again? So maybe in many places they have two roundabouts. Probably not even a discussion yet, but if you got waylaid, what's the next place you can turn around to get back to where you were going?
Well, as you get a little bit further down on 256 as you approach 70, that traffic light, the one that most people have the concerns about, and the intersection, I guess, right by where, Panera Bread is located and all of that on that corner area is actually monitored and controlled by the Ohio Department of Transportation as part of the on and off for 70. I do know that that area is slated for improvements. However, we're in that early stage where we have not had that conversation with them about if you would have a roundabout at that point. But that's a pretty long distance away. Usually you would have something a little bit sooner for that. I know in most communities, especially the ones that we've seen, Gahanna comes to mind the most recently, that their roundabouts that they had put in were typically easier roundabouts. They were on straight paths. There was not a lot of intricacies like what you have here with the five-way. And again, traffic studies do show that roundabouts typically do reduce the number of overall crashes. However, at the same time, the first one for Reynoldsburg being a five-way is where I think most of other community members have kind of expressed their concern. I apologize if I don't have time to look at the phone for any comments from social media, but I can review them and get back to everybody tomorrow if they have those questions. Mike, please come on up.
I'm Paul Walsh, Robbins Loop Drive. Driven a lot of roundabouts in Central Ohio, and I think this is probably a good idea from a safety standpoint. The double lane doesn't really bother me because there's a number of those around as well. Traffic crashes, I think, will probably end up reducing as people start getting more used to roundabouts, which have been around for a long time in the United States, but not necessarily so much around here.
Correct.
So I think it is a good idea. One question I had was there's the brick and stucco sign that says "Welcome to Reynoldsburg" on the point there, which I think that property is owned by the city.
Correct.
What happens to that sign?
Depending on the ultimate location, if it's a circular or the peanut, I would assume that whatever the monument sign would probably find its way into the center of it, hopefully not as a target for cars going over the roundabout.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll figure something else out
Okay.
where it's kind of something to be a dodge for that. But one of the things that I know the city is looking at just in general, and while it's important, it's not the highest of priorities given things that are going on, is to have more definitive entrances and exits to the city of Reynoldsburg. We are working on some plans for that. But again, that is probably, talk about a visible way as you're coming off of 270 into 256. You need to know that you're in the city of Reynoldsburg.
And that sign was donated, but I don't remember by whom.
Okay.
So the city didn't build that.
I would probably assume that we could probably find a way to, not salvage, I don't want to use that, but probably transplant. I guess that would probably be the best
Or
way.
even at least talk to whoever, if we can find out who actually donated it, to say, hey, something's probably going to have to happen to it, because either one of these plans is going to have to take it. It's going to have to move.
Yeah, it's the amount of right-of-way that would have to be
Yeah.
taken to make this possible is substantial, absolutely.
The other thing would be the center of these roundabouts. The ones I found to be safer for me are the ones that don't actually have anything in the middle of them, like grass maybe, and that's it, so that you can actually see traffic coming from other directions.
Yeah, one of the comments that from our service director, he had mentioned there were a number of smaller neighborhood-style roundabouts in Bexley, and that tended to be more of a drive-through version of things, and whatever was put in the center of them to try and let people know that they're not supposed to do that, it turned out to be that's actually like a target that they kind of
That's
drove
right,
through.
yes. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Please, anyone, this is why we're here. You braved the rains tonight, so I hope you come out and everybody can hear what you have to say.
Hi, Lauren Nader. I live on Palmer Road, right off of Graham. I guess I don't have strong feelings either way, roundabout, no roundabout. This is going to take years between the planning and getting it done, getting it built. In the meantime, though, I think there are quite a few things that can be done to make the intersection safer. When I'm coming off of Graham and going on to 256, none of the lines are marked on the road anymore. They're worn off. So I'm staying in my lane. I know to stay in my lane. The person always crosses over at me, or vice versa. I'll be in the inner lane, they move over because the lines do not go all the way through the intersection. That needs to be taken care of. Also, where cars are to stop, and so they're always too far over the line coming north off of 256. That needs to be taken care of. The driveway that goes into maybe the front of Burger King there, it's supposed to be a right turn only. People clog up 256 trying to turn left, do it all the time. We need some bigger barriers there. And I guess when it comes to the roundabouts, though, off in the future, some great examples of roundabouts that work well are the ones on Reynoldsburg, New Albany Road heading into New Albany. I work up there, and it's a cinch getting through them. I think a bad example is Dublin's at 161 and Riverside Drive. It was Crash City, from what I understand. My husband works right next to it. And they decided to have cut block at the edges of going through the roundabout. So if you get a little too far over, you've taken out, your wheels are all scratched, everything, it's just a mess. So they went back through then and had nice rounded areas put, like I say, like the ones on Reynoldsburg, New Albany Road. So that's way off in the distance, I know. But for now, we would really, really appreciate some line markings. Thank you.
I appreciate the suggestion. That's a good thing. And I see my service director kind of nodding as well.
Hi, my name is Drew Longaber. I live off of Reynoldswood. I would just like to speak in support of this roundabout idea, just merely for the fact that it's environmentally friendly and it's more fuel efficient. I don't have to sit at this intersection for 10 minutes after I go or every time that I go through there. Entirely because I don't think there's any alternative to the fact. I think we've adjusted the traffic lights enough for us to not be able to handle those 12,000 cars that go through that daily. And so I just see a roundabout as the only way that we can fix the current traffic problems with that. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to speak my support for it.
Thank you. Full disclosure, he's my intern, so he's done a lot of research on this even prior to coming into the office. And a student at the East-Em Academy for anyone watching at home. I'm always a teacher. I can't help it. All right. What we'll do from here on out is we'll go ahead and, because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, there were some handouts that were here to kind of get an example of two of the very rough sketches of everything. We do have significant more data as far as crash data and things of that nature as well, that if you would like that, you're more than able, we can request and send as much of it as we can. The next step will be when the Traffic and Transportation Committee reconvenes. We'll kind of go through some of the data that we have seen on social media, as well as some of the comments that you've had here about potential next steps, and then working again with other various agencies, whether it's the Ohio Department of Transportation specifically for this project, or the other projects on 256 and 70 and the upgrades to the interchange as well. There were other locations that were mentioned for roundabouts. Some of the topics that come up about roundabouts on Main Street all the way throughout, and those were unfortunately, because it's a national road, are just not feasible in those areas. We did talk about roundabouts. Most recently, actually, the topic of conversation came up on our Wagner Road Improvement Plan to put a roundabout potentially in at Priestley and Wagner. However, again, the amount of land that would need to be acquired as far as right-of-way to put a roundabout in that particular location is quite significant, and we don't know if that is something that would be possible. We also talked about potentially a roundabout going in conjunction, maybe partnering with Etna Township at Taylor Road and Palmer on that side of things, which would probably be the most convenient of all of them, given the amount of traffic that area is experiencing. But those are discussions that we'll have with Etna Township at the time when that time comes. If there are no other questions here from anyone in the audience, or at least official questions, we all know that the most important stuff is talked about in the meeting after the meeting. You're more than welcome to stay. I'll be here for a few minutes to answer your questions. For those of you on social media watching at home, I will go through the comments, and if you have things that are specific in there, we'll go ahead and do that. And again, please stay tuned to the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe every Wednesday for some updated information, as well as registering for Reynoldsburg Connects. That is our email blast system. You get really good information once a month, usually about the middle of the month, kind of updated things on what's going on with council. If you're interested in registering for that, you can go to our main webpage and scroll down to the bottom and register, and you can get that. It's not going to be something where you're going to get 30 emails a week. You're just going to get one big one a month and then a couple of emergency bulletins, but that will give you information on anything going on in the city, including potential updates for this project or others in the city. With that, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I appreciate all of your comments that are already been made and those will be made in the coming weeks. I appreciate it and thank you so much. Thank you to everyone watching at home too.